Picture this. You are speaking in a meeting, or maybe you are explaining something important to a friend. Your thought is clear. Your words are flowing. Then suddenly someone cuts in and begins talking over you, louder, faster, as if your voice was never there in the first place. Your chest tightens, your mind races, and your first instinct is simple. Fight for your space, talk louder, interrupt them back, prove you cannot be ignored. But here is the truth most people never realize: the moment you start fighting for the floor, you have already lost control of the room. In this video you will learn 6 smart phrases rooted in Stoic wisdom that quietly stop people from talking over you, not by arguing, not by raising your voice, but by using calm authority that commands respect. If you value calm strength and silent confidence, then subscribe to Stoic Quiet Strength and turn on notifications, because here we practice one principle: power in silence. Most people think interruptions are about dominance. They believe the person speaking the loudest controls the conversation, but Stoicism teaches something very different. True power is not in noise, it is in composure. When someone talks over you, there are 2 characters in the room. The first is the insecure interrupter. This person is uncomfortable with silence, uncomfortable with patience. They rush to fill every pause because silence makes them feel invisible, so they talk faster, louder, cutting through conversations like a storm. Then there is the second character, the Stoic observer. This person does not rush, does not panic when interrupted, does not scramble to compete for attention. The Stoic understands something most people never learn: attention flows toward calm authority, not frantic noise. When you react emotionally to interruptions, you are stepping into their chaos, but when you respond with stillness, you force the chaos to reveal itself. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Interruptions are outside events. They are noise in the environment. The only real question is whether you will let that noise control your mind. Before we look at the phrases themselves, we must understand the deeper purpose behind them. The goal is not to embarrass the other person. The goal is not to win an argument. The goal is to protect your composure. Epictetus said something powerful about this. He said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." In other words, people cannot truly disturb your peace unless you participate in the disturbance. So when someone interrupts you, the Stoic response is not anger. The Stoic response is strategy. Now let us begin with the first phrase, and this one is surprisingly simple, yet incredibly powerful. The first phrase sounds like this: "I noticed you have something to say, go ahead, I will wait." Notice what happens here. The interrupter expects resistance. They expect you to compete for the spotlight. They expect you to raise your voice or rush your words. But when you calmly step back and invite them to speak, you remove the tension they were pushing against. This does something psychologically interesting. Instead of wrestling for the floor, you hand it to them completely, and suddenly they are standing alone in the spotlight. People who interrupt often rely on friction. They rely on emotional reactions to fuel their momentum. When that friction disappears, they lose balance. By saying "I will wait," you also send a subtle message. The conversation is not over. You are simply allowing them to finish their impulse before returning to your thought. Your calm tone makes the room aware of what just happened without you ever accusing anyone. Seneca once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay," and that is exactly what this phrase creates: a pause, a moment where emotion cannot dominate the interaction. You are not retreating, you are controlling the pace of the conversation. And something interesting happens when you practice this consistently. People begin to notice that interrupting you never creates a reaction, it never produces a battle, so the habit slowly disappears. Because people often stop behaviors that do not reward them with emotional drama. But sometimes a polite invitation is not enough, sometimes the interruption continues, sometimes the person keeps speaking as if the conversation belongs entirely to them. This is where the second phrase enters, and this one quietly establishes order without aggression. The second phrase is this: please finish your thought, then I will finish mine. Listen carefully to the structure of that sentence. It is calm, balanced, and fair. You are not accusing them, you are not saying stop interrupting me, you are simply stating the natural order of conversation. First you, then me. This appeals to something deeper than emotion, it appeals to fairness. Human beings instinctively recognize fairness, and when someone hears this phrase spoken with calm eye contact, they suddenly become aware that the social balance has been broken. You are not fighting for attention, you are restoring structure. And when you say it with composure, the room understands exactly what is happening. Seneca once reminded his students of a powerful discipline. He said, "He who is brave is free." Bravery does not always mean confrontation, sometimes bravery means calmly holding your place without raising your voice. Most people fear silence in conversations, they rush to fill every moment with sound because silence feels awkward. But the Stoic sees silence differently. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. And that realization leads us to the third and perhaps most powerful response of them all. The next phrase is not really a phrase at all. It is silence. But not ordinary silence. Deliberate silence. When someone interrupts you, stop speaking immediately, look directly at them, remain calm, do not sigh, do not roll your eyes, do not react emotionally, simply allow them to continue. This does something extraordinary to the dynamics of the room. Because now the interrupter must carry the entire weight of the moment alone. They no longer have your words to push against. They no longer have a debate to energize them. They simply have space. And space is something impulsive speakers rarely know how to handle. Very often they begin to stumble, they repeat themselves, they lose their train of thought, because the energy of interruption has nowhere to go. When they finally trail off, you pause for one more second, a calm, steady second, then you simply say, "As I was saying," and continue your sentence from the exact place you stopped. No anger. No explanation. No apology. Just continuation. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that fits perfectly here: the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When someone interrupts aggressively, they are operating from impatience and ego. When you respond with calm silence, you refuse to mirror their chaos. And that difference speaks louder than any argument. Now imagine this situation: you are speaking calmly, someone interrupts again, but this time the interruption is not accidental, it carries a tone of dismissal, almost as if your words are not worth finishing. Moments like this test your composure, because silence alone may not always correct the behavior. Sometimes what is needed is a calm line drawn with precision. This is where the fourth phrase comes in, and it is one of the most powerful because it brings awareness into the room without sounding hostile. The phrase is simple: I want to hear your point, but are you interrupting because you think I am finished, or because you do not want to hear what I have to say? Notice how calm this question is. It is not an accusation, it is curiosity, but that curiosity shines a light on the behavior that just happened. Many people interrupt on impulse, they are not even aware they are doing it, their thoughts move faster than their patience, so they jump into the conversation before the other person has completed their idea. When you calmly ask this question, you force them to pause and reflect. Suddenly their autopilot shuts down and their rational mind steps in. They must now choose how to respond. Most of the time the interrupter will quickly say something like, No, I thought you were done, please continue." And in that moment something important has happened. You have restored the balance of the conversation without raising your voice. Epictetus taught a principle that applies perfectly here. He said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." A Stoic decides in advance that he will remain composed, then he acts in ways that protect that composure. When you ask this question, you are not reacting emotionally, you are acting intentionally. You are guiding the interaction back toward respect. But sometimes the situation is more direct. Sometimes someone begins speaking loudly over you and continues even after you pause. In those moments, a firmer boundary becomes necessary. This leads us to the fifth phrase, a phrase that is calm yet unmistakably clear. The phrase is this: "I am going to pause you there for a moment, I was not quite finished." There is something very important about the wording here. You are not saying "Stop interrupting me." You are not raising your voice. You are simply stating a fact. I was not quite finished. Facts carry weight when they are delivered calmly. Think about the tone here. It should not sound defensive, it should not sound irritated, it should sound steady and grounded, like someone who knows their words deserve to be completed. The key word in this phrase is pause. When you say "I am going to pause you there," you are quietly taking control of the rhythm of the conversation. You are not attacking the other person, you are adjusting the flow. And people instinctively recognize that level of calm authority. Seneca once wrote something that perfectly captures this kind of strength. He said, "A wise man is calm in the face of insult and slow to anger." Calmness does not mean weakness, calmness means control. When you calmly hold your boundary, you communicate something powerful to everyone listening. You communicate that your words are not rushed. They are not desperate. They are measured. And measured speech naturally commands attention. Now let us move to the sixth phrase, and this one is surprisingly effective because it uses generosity as a strategy. The sixth phrase sounds like this: "You seem very eager to share your thoughts, why do you not go ahead and start, then I will follow after." This approach flips the entire dynamic of the interruption. Instead of resisting the interruption, you lean into it. You step aside and give the other person full permission to speak. At first this may sound like surrender, but in reality it does something subtle. It removes the excitement of interruption. Many interrupters thrive on resistance. They enjoy the moment of cutting into someone else's speech because it feels like a small victory. But when you calmly invite them to take the floor, that excitement disappears. Now the spotlight is entirely on them. They must organize their thoughts, they must carry the conversation, and very often they realize they had less to say than they thought. Meanwhile you remain composed, observant, patient. This is the Stoic position, the observer rather than the reactor. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this mindset when he wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or think, or do, only what you do." The Stoic focuses on his own conduct, not on controlling other people. If someone interrupts, that is their behavior. Your responsibility is your response. And when your response is calm dignity, the room begins to shift in your favor. Because people naturally listen more carefully to the person who speaks less but speaks with intention. Now that you have heard all 6 phrases, there is something even more important than the words themselves. It is the energy behind them. Anyone can memorize a sentence, but not everyone can deliver it with composure. So the real practice begins before the words ever leave your mouth. When someone interrupts you, the first thing you will feel is a surge of emotion, frustration, irritation, maybe even anger. That reaction is normal. But Stoicism teaches us to create a small space between the event and the response. Epictetus described this perfectly when he said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In that brief moment when someone cuts into your sentence, you have a choice. You can rush to defend your voice. Or you can pause, breathe, and respond with intention. That pause is where Stoic strength lives. Now something important begins to happen when you start practicing these phrases in real life. At first you may still feel that familiar spark of irritation when someone cuts into your sentence. That reaction is human, but with time you begin to notice something different. The interruption no longer controls the emotional temperature of the room. Instead of tension, there is calm space. Instead of rushing to compete for attention, you allow the moment to breathe. And when the moment breathes, people begin to notice who truly holds the center of the conversation. Most people believe influence comes from speaking the most, from dominating the air with constant words, but the truth is almost the opposite. The person who speaks with patience, with timing, with calm authority, becomes the person others instinctively listen to. There is a quiet gravity in controlled speech. When your words are measured, they carry more weight. When your pauses are intentional, they command more focus. This is why Stoic philosophers placed so much value on discipline of the tongue. Seneca once gave a powerful piece of advice when he wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Many interruptions feel larger than they truly are because our mind immediately turns them into personal attacks, but most of the time they are simply habits of impatience. And habits can be redirected when they meet calm resistance." Imagine the next time someone talks over you, instead of rushing to reclaim the spotlight, you stop, you look at them calmly, you allow the silence to expand for a second, then you respond with one of the phrases you learned today. Immediately the rhythm of the conversation changes. The room slows down. People become aware of the interruption. Not because you attacked anyone, but because your composure quietly revealed the imbalance. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that captures this perfectly. He said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The Stoic does not lecture others about respect, the Stoic embodies it through behavior. When you practice calm speech, you become an example of discipline in a noisy world. And something interesting begins to happen. People start listening more carefully when you speak. Not because you demanded attention, but because your presence creates contrast. The world today is full of voices competing for attention, everyone rushing to speak, rushing to react, rushing to prove themselves. But when someone enters that environment with quiet control, it stands out immediately. Think about the people you respect the most in conversation. Very often they are not the loudest voices. They are the calmest ones. They listen carefully. They pause before speaking. And when they finally say something, the room naturally leans closer. That is the power of restraint. Epictetus once reminded his students of a simple observation. He said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Listening is not passivity. Listening is awareness. It allows you to understand the emotional currents in a conversation. It allows you to respond instead of react. And when someone interrupts you, the Stoic does not panic. The Stoic observes. Is this person impatient? Are they anxious? Are they seeking attention? Understanding these dynamics helps you choose the right response. Sometimes silence is enough. Sometimes a calm phrase restores balance. Sometimes simply continuing your thought after a pause reminds everyone that your voice deserves completion. But the deeper lesson goes beyond stopping interruptions. It is about mastering your own reactions. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to practice inner discipline. Every interruption becomes a reminder to slow down your mind. Because the real battlefield is never the conversation itself. The real battlefield is your composure. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this constantly during his life as an emperor surrounded by chaos. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Someone speaking over you is an external event. Your reaction to it is your choice. And when you choose calm clarity over emotional competition, you demonstrate a kind of strength that is rare in today's world. So as you move through your week, begin experimenting with these phrases. When someone interrupts you, try the first approach, calmly invite them to speak and let the silence do its work. Another time, restore fairness by saying, please finish your thought, then I will finish mine. In another moment, simply pause, look calmly, and continue your sentence as if the interruption was only a passing cloud. Each time you practice this, you strengthen the habit of composure. And composure is one of the most powerful forms of influence. Because people trust the person who remains steady when others become reactive. Seneca once said something that feels especially relevant here. He wrote, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart and a calm mind. A calm mind is not easily shaken by small disruptions, it does not scramble to prove its worth, it simply continues with quiet confidence." This is the essence of Stoic quiet strength. Not silence out of fear, but silence chosen with intention. Not speech driven by ego, but speech guided by purpose. When you master this balance, your voice becomes something different. It becomes deliberate. And deliberate speech always carries authority. If this reflection helped you and you want to keep strengthening that calm presence, then subscribe to Stoic Quiet Strength and turn on notifications so you never miss the next lesson on discipline, composure, and power in silence. And before you go, leave a comment with the word composure. It tells me you stayed until the end and that you are committed to mastering your voice and your silence. Stand tall this week, move calmly through the noise of the world, speak when it matters, pause when it does not, and remember something the Stoics understood long ago. The person who controls their tongue often controls the room. This is Stoic Quiet Strength. Power in silence.